Welcome to another meeting of the Lorain County Commissioners, broadcast exclusively on your Lorain County Community College education station. The Lorain County Commissioners cordially invite you to see the meeting live and in person every Thursday morning. The meetings are located in the Lorain County Administration Building, located at 226 Middle Avenue in downtown Lorain. The meetings start at 9:30 a.m. on most weeks. Now, enjoy the meeting.
Seat at me. Ready, set, go. Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I'll just keep getting
You like that, don't you?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to the 17th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners for the year 2001. The thought that I would like to offer for today is short and sweet, but it's very poignant, I think. This is someone's quote, it's not mine. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. I'd also like to wish our clerk a belated happy birthday.
Geez.
I have no paper plate. I have no paper plate to hold up that has a number on it. After 25, I respect the
Right, thanks.
Happy birthday,
I
Roxy.
can get everyone to sing for you, though.
That's fine. Thanks, anyway.
Madam Clerk.
All right, under resolutions, I motion to approve the Job and Family Services bills for payment.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Investments?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Appropriations?
There were 8. So moved. Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Transfers?
There were 18. Also moved. Well, he's making us be accountable, so I make notes. I'm paying attention.
Discussion. Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
There were no advances this morning. Requisitions?
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Travel expenses?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I just have one thing on 37801. There was some travel reimbursement for travel expenses and mileage. That should be turned in every week. I think that the one that was in here was like for 3 or 4 months since February. So Yvonne, I'm hoping that you...
We did it, and I spoke to her again this morning about travel on a monthly basis.
Okay, thanks.
Yvonne, do we have a written policy on that?
No, we've always just had a standard policy. It's not written.
Why don't we get together and we'll come up and draft a written policy so everybody can follow the same policy. Okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Approving bills for payment.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
To authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary for employees within the jurisdiction of the Lorain County Commissioners.
So moved.
Second. Let's see it.
Did you see it?
No, I see it again. That's all right. Okay, I got this. Yeah, I don't think I find it. It was just a copy I had on there. I had this too.
There are 2 sheets, though, are there not? Jeff?
Yes, one for human services and one for work.
There are 2 sheets.
Okay. I did second. Oh, no, there are 2 sheets.
Yes,
Yeah, sign this one.
that's the one, Bridge Employee, and this is the Job and Family Services. Are we all set then?
Do you have any? Okay, Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
To authorize payment of United Healthcare medical runoff claims for certain county employees in the amount of $606.01 is itemized on the list of claims.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
I'd like to authorize the county to approve the settlement and release with Frank Colbert and authorize the president to execute the settlement and release on behalf of the board.
Also move.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
I'd like to authorize Juan Crespo, the Director for Lorain County Children and Families Council, to enter into memorandums of understanding on behalf of the Commissioners and authorize payment of summer camp activities for Lorain County youth between the ages of 6 to 16. The funds will be provided through the PRC grant from the Lorain County Job and Family Services as follows. Provider, Catholic Charities, the amount of award, $6,825, and that will serve 21 youth. Common Ground, $2,800 for 20 youths. Easter Seals, $2,075 for 4. Lorain County Community Action Agency, $4,828 for 20 youths. The Neighborhood House, $16,598 for 20 youths. The Overland Boys and Girls Club, $7,747 for 10 youths. The Our Savior Lutheran Church, $6,586 for 20 youths. Salvation Army, $9,436, that will serve 20 youths. The Urban Minority Alcohol Drug Addiction Outreach Program, $4,838, that will serve 12 youths. And the Elyria YMCA, $13,500, that will serve 15 youths. Juan, sir, if you have any questions?
So moved.
I'll second, and before we vote, I will ask Juan if you would like to comment to the board about this program. Good morning.
Juan Molina Crespo, Juanmolina-Crespo. The list of vendors that are identified in the agenda are vendors that we've worked with in the past. As the commissioners know, this is our third summer of providing these services to the youth in Lorain County. Every year it becomes more problematic in terms of finding the appropriate level of funding to make sure that we do the best job that we can given the limitations that we have. I'd like to just identify, if I could quickly, 3 of the camps, Catholic Charities, Easter Seals, and Umadoc, are 3 camps that provide residential camping as opposed to summer camp activities. Residential camping is where there's a series of activities that includes overnight stays in a campground or for special needs children in the case of Easter Seals.
Juan, I do have a question. I see there's a big difference in, like, Common Ground, we're serving 20 youth, and it's $2,800, and then you come down here to Salvation Army, 20 children, $9,400. What's the big difference?
Every vendor that we contract with has different unit costs associated with the implementation of their activities. For example, transportation increased dramatically from last year to this year. Some vendors may have transportation availability within their own structure. Others have to contract that service out. And so you'll find that there's different unit costs associated with the activities that they are providing. And that's where we're finding the variance in terms of the differences between the unit costs between the agencies. Staff rates, materials, not all vendors approach or have the same costs associated with their activities.
But the kids are all going to get the same benefit?
No, ma'am, not necessarily. Some of the vendors are going to go on field trips, for example, that are more expensive than doing arts and crafts. So that's a good comparison, where the kids will need transportation to do Cedar Point or the zoo, the museums, as opposed to a vendor that may provide arts and craft activities during the day. So there'll be a variance in terms of the costs associated with those activities.
It's interesting.
Or do you have more comments?
No, ma'am.
Elizabeth Rummich, you have a question?
Yes, if I may. Elizabeth Rummich, RUMICS, Oberlin. How are these children or youth chosen? Do they apply? Are they nominated? Where do they come from, and so forth?
Excellent question. Thank you. The children all have to meet the PRC eligibility income, which is 175% of poverty. The vendors are responsible for ensuring that all of the necessary eligibility documents accompany their application. Those applications, along with the documents, come to my office, and my staff person, Catherine Jo Wright, makes sure that all of the documents are in place before they go to Job and Family Services for final approval. So it really is quite an involved process in terms of determining eligibility. I'd just like to mention one more thing because it's an important one. Some of the vendors that we have here understand that not all children are going to be eligible, usually for a reason outside of their control. That is to say, the child is eligible, wants to come to camp, but for whatever reason doesn't have the documentation. It's lost, it's misplaced, the parents can't find it. Some of these vendors have provided the camp service and has not billed us and have taken funds from other sources that they receive to make sure that that child has a summer camp experience. So I think it speaks to the commitment of some of these agencies to ensure that the child receives a rewarding camp experience.
Okay,
Thank you,
Juan.
Juan.
When I was last summer, when I was at the Y, they talked a lot about this, and what you just said was true. That these children, they want to come here, but they don't have the documentation because maybe they are, one parent at home. They don't have a Social Security card because they can't find it. And I heard nothing but complaints on their end saying that there's so much red tape and paperwork to get one child to go to camp that it's just very difficult that they do end up just taking it on their own. I mean, is there any way that we can do to simplify the process, to make it easier to get more children involved without the governmental red tape?
I can tell you what the council, for next funding cycle, for next summer, we're going to apply to private foundations to help underwrite the cost of this grant, of these activities. And what that'll do, obviously, is eliminate, although the council will still be responsible for the administration of the dollars, it will eliminate the cumbersome income eligibility criteria that unfortunately has to be accompanied with these dollars. Now, we've been working very closely with Ms. Golsky from the Job and Family,
Services.
Our sign says Department of Job and Family
That's the
Services,
one.
in case we forget. Thank you.
And her and her staff have been bending over backwards to make sure that we can simplify it as much as we can, given the criteria that the state puts on us.
Right.
So everybody wants to spend the money, everybody wants the kids to go to summer camp, but the state has certain criteria that they just won't budge on. So either we do the work and provide the service, or we don't. Just speaking frankly. There is the one thing that did happen, it's an improvement, is that we no longer, if the child was enrolled last year, that application is good for 12 months, which means that we don't have to replicate everything for that particular child. It's not considered a new enrollment. So that simplifies it somewhat and streamlines it somewhat.
Is there an age limit?
6 to 16.
And is there a deadline?
Well, most of the camps end by August 18th, and they begin as early as June 11th, I believe. So it's a very small window of really a flurry of summer camp activities, and then it shuts down.
Other questions?
That's all I have.
David Ashenhurst, you had a question for Mr. Molina?
Thank you, Commissioner. David Ashenhurst, Ashenhurst. I just wondered, were there any differences on the length on how many weeks of summer camp these children got? I mean, would that also make a difference in the unit cost if somebody's in camp for several weeks and somebody else is in camp for 1 week? And could we have some sort of a breakdown of that? I mean, how many weeks these last?
Actually, I have a chart with me that defines the unit, the particular vendor. The shortest period of time is 1 week, David, and the longest is 48 days. So we have a time frame of activities. That's your period of time, and each vendor is different. And I can provide that for
Well,
you.
and I think that speaks to Commissioner Vacy's question, too, does it not? Thank you for the question, and thank you for the answer. Further discussion?
That's it. Thanks.
Madam Clerk?
Okay, Mrs. Vacy? Aye. Mrs. Blair?
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
We need to accept the proposal from Emerge Incorporated, they're in Elyria, Ohio, in the amount of $23,500 to develop a program and website that will enable attorneys, title companies, banks, and other commercial entities, as well as the county taxpayers, to access probate court's database of cases and dockets free of charge.
Also move.
Second?
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
I'd like to authorize the transfer of Army surplus vehicles from the Lorain County Commissioners to Sheffield Village, Ohio. Sheffield Village has acquired a 1953 cargo truck and a 1954 Jeep utility vehicle. Years ago, when the vehicles were acquired by Sheffield Village, no titles were provided. The Auto Title Bureau can issue duplicate titles to Lorain County Commissioners and in turn have them transferred to the village, which will be sold at a public auction. I'd like to authorize the county administrator to execute the titles on behalf of the board.
Mr. Cordes, are we doing this to assist Sheffield Village? Is that my understanding?
Sheffield Village was auctioning off a lot of surplus vehicles and materials. Upon going to auction these vehicles, they discovered that they didn't have titles for them. Most likely they were never titled. They were probably just an intergovernmental transfer over to Sheffield. When they went to get new titles issued, they discovered that they were still in the commissioner's name. We had the paperwork done, and they wanted me to sign immediately because they were auctioning that day, and I refused. Even though they're salvage, I didn't have the authority to transfer county property to them, even though they were in possession of that property. So this is just a housekeeping resolution to facilitate the disposal of these vehicles.
And they were originally ours, huh?
I think we may have been a pass-through agency on some kind of program way back when. We have a lot of vehicles that are titled to us that were passed through the particular agencies. The Fair Bureau had a problem with that several years ago where they never titled some of their vehicles and they had to go back and try to title them. So, like I said, it's just a housekeeping issue.
Thank you. Also move.
Second?
Any more discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
I'd like to advertise for bids for the furnishing of all labor, material, and equipment for the Bursley Road, Gore Orphanage Road improvement in Rochester Township. Estimate of cost, $105,061.11. The county engineer has been working with Conrail, Rochester Township, PUCO, and the Ohio Rail Development Commission to construct a bypass road along the southerly side of CSX to continue Bursley Road to Gore Orphanage Road. The crossing at Bursley Road would then be closed. The engineer has received approval to proceed with the project, which will be 100% reimbursed by CXS and the Ohio Rail Commission. These are both township roads, but Rochester Township does not have a budget large enough to pay for the project and to wait for reimbursement. The project will be paid from MVGT funds, and we'd like to publish the notice in the Chronicle Telegram and Morning Journal on May 16th and 23rd, 2001.
Also move.
Second.
Discussion. Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
I'd like to approve and enter into the annual maintenance service agreement between the Board of Commissioners and Micro Advantage Incorporated of Elyria, Ohio, for computer repair service and preventative maintenance for equipment listed and provided by the County of Lorain. The agreement is for a one-year period, effective June 1st, 2001, terminating May 31st, 2002, in the annual amount of $81,480. And the Commissioners did adopt a resolution on May 3rd accepting the proposal.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, it should be included in here that this agreement should state that it also includes the parts.
I believe the contract does state that.
Make sure it states in the agreement that
Right.
it includes parts.
Well, what I recommend we do, if there's some question, is that we make the proposal an attachment to the contract. And in the proposal, it clearly states what parts and the terms and conditions are there. So, Jerry, can we make that an enclosure to the contract? And that'll make it an integral part of that contract, and that'll cover us. Acceptable? I'll make sure that happens then.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
In your motion, do you want to stipulate that then, Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
No, well,
Include it?
Commissioner Moore made the
Well,
motion,
I
so I'm
mean to
asking
include
if
it.
he'd
I'm
like
sorry.
to stipulate that as part of the motion.
Okay.
And thank you. And then I'll second that.
Okay,
Madam Clerk?
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Mrs. Blair.
Aye.
Mrs. Bassett.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we have to approve and enter into the following agreements with the Board of Commissioners for the Lorain County Area-Wide Micro Enterprise Loan Program, that's the LAMP program. The first with First Merit Bank of Elyria, Ohio, to make available loans in accordance with the agreement to business entities located in Lorain County for the amount of $500,000 to be made available over a period of 3 years commencing May 10, 2001. Each loan shall be no greater than $20,000 and no less than $250, and shall be made in accordance with the manual. Also with the Women's Development Center located at the Lorain County Community College, Elyria, Ohio, Small Business Development Center of the Lorain County Chamber of Commerce, Lorain, Ohio, and the Lorain County Joint Vocational School, Oberlin, Ohio, to also provide training and technical assistance commencing on or after March 2001. The county will reimburse the Small Business Development Center for services up to but not exceeding $5,000. Agreements do contain a 30-day written cancellation clause.
I think these should be voted on individually.
A and B, you're suggesting?
Yes.
B includes several different items. Does it not?
But
Yes.
I think B is all training programs, and A is $500,000 going to First Merit. And I'm wondering, is that going to be a deposit into First Merit? How is that being handled? Because I'm concerned with the interest. Who's going to get the interest?
No, I don't think that's...
Good morning, Mr. Klein.
I'm sorry, it's $50,000.
Ron Twining, Community Development Director, TWINING. There are two different contracts that have been reviewed. The first one is between the commissioners and the bank, and that is to make available the money that the bank, its community reinvestment, has available for these businesses. The actual loan itself will go from the bank. We'll pay it first, and then once we've paid it, we'll give the bank a copy of the check or the warrant that the county has issued, and then upon submission of that and a request for reimbursement, the bank then from their funds will reimburse the county the full amount of the loan. Last week you approved one for $20,000. As soon as we pay that company or that business her $20,000, we will walk over a copy of our warrant, and the bank will, issue a check to us that will be put into our account to replenish our funds. The other issues on the bottom, item B, the training and the review of the applications and the costs associated with that. If you remember, the county commissioners committed $50,000 from its general fund, and the state of Ohio has allowed us to use $50,000 from the county revolving loan fund. That $100,000, $50,000 is already in the LAMP account. We soon, probably next week, will be requesting the commissioners to authorize the $50,000 from the revolving loan to be deposited into that account, and item B will come out of the general fund contribution as well as from the bank itself. Does that answer your question, Commissioner?
I think my question was, will the $50,000 be deposited in the bank and the bank receive the interest?
Commissioner, I can answer that.
I think you lost me somewhere.
The $50,000 will remain in the general fund.
And then we'll draw as needed?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, that.
So we retain all interest on any funds that originate with county dollars.
Okay, and B, I thought that was kind of vague. It doesn't talk about what kind of training is going to be given, how many people will be trained, and for how long, or who decides that these people need training?
That's part of the review. That's the $5,000 that's from the Small Business Development. They will review each application, and depending on the information in the application, each application is evaluated as to how much training and which parts of the training they need, or the complete training. It's up to 13 weeks of training from any of the top 3 companies listed in item B. But the Small Business Development Center will make that determination, and that was part of the procedures that we approved probably about 3 or 4 months ago. Some companies will receive no training because they're ready to go. They just need to do a business plan. We will provide assistance and help from one of those 3 training agencies to work with them to put together a business plan that will give assurance to the bank that the company will be successful and able to repay the loan. So that's a hard question to answer, and it's further spelled out depending on their income level and the type of business being started. There are different fees charged, and that was in the policy manual that the commissioners approved earlier too. Some companies, we will pay a larger share because they're a low and mod current person, and we will pay a prorated amount of that, which may be 80% of their cost. Each of these training programs, there's a pre-established cost per participant. We're anticipating the 3 training sources will spend not to exceed $15,000 per training. But it depends on when the applications are made, when they're ready to start the program, and everything else. So that's a $15,000 per entity not to exceed amount that we're requesting. There's 3 entities doing training, that's $45,000, and then there is the $5,000 for the evaluation, review and evaluation of each application by the Small Business Development Center.
You're not saying that $15,000 would be to train one person?
No.
It's
no.
just how much you're going to give this
We're
entity.
anticipating that that's how much will be spent to train a good number of applicants during the first year by each entity.
Okay, what type of training, Ron?
There's 13 weeks if they go through the whole training, and that 13 weeks teaches them everything about the taxes that are due, the legal issues that they're going to be confronted with, putting a business plan, a marketing plan together. There are several strategies. I think each of the 13 weeks is about a 2-hour class. It's a standard training offering that has been standardized for this nation through the Department of Economic Development and Development. So it's a national training effort, and these 3 entities have all been certified by the association as qualified to teach that coursework.
Okay, thank you.
And it's really an effort to make sure that we do everything we can to help that individual be successful as a small business and able to repay the loan, because then they will employ people and make our economy so much better.
Commissioner, we'll be seeing A again with a number of banks, correct, Ron? We have 2 other banks that we're going to have to do contracts with that are similar to A here. So,
and we hesitated to bring this before the board until we had our first client ready to go for the first loan, and now we are in place as of last week. So now we feel that it's the appropriate time to enter into these agreements. Once they're done, we will hopefully next week be able to write the official check to this first applicant, and we're up and running for sure.
Mr. Ennis, is there differentiation between one motion for both items and separate motions?
It's possible you might want to vote for one, vote for 2, so...
You suggest that we should have separate motions? That would be your...
Mrs. Vacy has asked that you consider them separately, so
Okay, fine.
I think that would be appropriate.
Thank you. Any further questions?
No.
I'll move on 17A for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
And I'll move on 17B for approval.
Second.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Need to approve a change order to refrigeration specialists in the amount of $60,000 to replace the 4 rooftop units which heat and cool the day room area of the pods in the older section of the correctional facility. RWL Architects have outlined the general cost of the units at approximately $15,000 per unit, plus the architectural fee of 8.5% at $5,100 for a total cost of $65,100. This change order will allow RWL Architects to provide design, specifications, and revisions to the current drawings to incorporate the replacement of the rooftop units.
Mr. Cortez?
well, this has been out there for a couple months now. They were up there doing work, and they discovered a few rooftop units that were in need of repair. They were already replacing approximately 14 units, and there was a couple more discovered. I initially was spoken to by a few of the commissioners on First Energy and Honeywell and Johnson Controls, everybody that wants to come in and has these creative programs to put the materials in place and the equipment in place and lease cost back options to us and so forth. I've sent most of them out there. We just haven't made any headway in that. And I'm not really sure why. We haven't made any headway with those folks here either. I believe it's because we were so far along in the project that it's hard to bring somebody in towards the end of a project. So I recommend that we go ahead and we approve this change order because they're up there doing the work and it's less costly to do it now. And that in the future, when we start talking about doing these things, that we look at some of that more creative ways of replacing this equipment in conjunction with House Bill 300 and some of the companies out there that want to operate underneath that to lease back equipment to us.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions? Also move.
Second. Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
I'd like to issue notice to proceed letter to Lake Erie Construction Company of Norwalk, Ohio for the Lorain County Guardrail Project, effective May 10, 2001. Contract was awarded on April 5, 2001 by resolution number 01-302.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
I'd like to amend resolution number 01-374 that was adopted April 19, 2001 to advertise for bids for the Amherst Township Park, a community development block grant funded project. Bids were to be received on May 8, 2001. This amendment is to request approval to extend the bid deadline until Monday, May 14, 2001 at 2 p.m. Just prior to noon on Monday, May 7th, Mr. Twining, the Community Development Director, was asked to clarify the site preparation portion of the bid. This request was received less than 30 hours before the scheduled bid opening, and Mr. Twining feels that to allow bidders adequate time to prepare their bids based on the issuance of a clarification addendum, the bid line deadline should be extended.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
I'd like to approve the state fiscal year 2002 Department of Job and Family Services Medicaid Eligibility Outreach Plan. This will allow the department to provide the following services: for billboards placed along highways, outreach workers stationed at other locations to assist with applications, a county telephone hotline, newspaper advertisement, health fairs, county fairs, job fairs, transportation for outreach workers, community breakfast for employers and agencies. The budget request to support this very activities is listed at federal share $123,175.90. The local match will come from income maintenance funds at $13,686.21 for a total of $136,862.11. I'd like to authorize the president to execute the plan on behalf of the board and to authorize Mary Lugolsky, the director of the Job and Family Services, to execute contracts on behalf of the commissioners as needed with the county prosecutor's approval as to form.
Does the board want to hear from DAC on this?
I have a question for you, Dee, if you don't mind.
Dee, would you come to the microphone then, please? DAC from the Job and Family Services Department. Good morning, Dee. I assume that you were here to speak to this issue.
And to the next two issues, too.
Yes. Dee, on the transportation for the outreach workers,
Yes.
now, where is that going to be paid from? Because we just had one this morning, I believe, was an outreach worker, if I'm correct.
Correct.
And we paid that out of the general fund, and it looks to me that this will be coming out of the Job and Family Service Fund.
There was a line item in last year's plan, last year's budget, for transportation for the outreach workers. So those transportation charges made during this fiscal year should be covered under the funds for this program. There, excuse me. What I noticed was that in last year's resolution, it wasn't. There's a total cost amount for outreach workers, which includes transportation. There was an attachment that further defined the costs in that total cost of outreach workers. The outreach workers, if you recall, are employees of the commissioners.
Correct.
And the cost, the budget in this year's plan, the state did develop a budget sheet that now captures that as a separate cost. Last year's plan did not show, they didn't require that we show that as a separate cost, although we did break it down in an attachment to that budget. So the money is in there to pay for transportation costs for outreach workers who do travel to clients' homes or to job fairs, wherever they need to go.
This is reimbursement for mileage. That we're
Correct.
To piggyback on your question, Commissioner Vacy, Yvonne, what account was that?
It's not a general fund account. It's
No.
underneath the commissioner because technically she is a commissioner's employee, but it's coming out of 237.
What we call Fund 237.
Which is the account that Dee just spoke to?
Yeah, we're
Yes.
taking out the account that she's speaking.
So it is coming out of the
Right,
proper
not a
account?
general fund
Yes.
account.
Okay, thank you very much.
Even though somebody handed me this morning, I believe you did, Jeff, and it's got $3,000 allowable for transportation costs, and that was should have been in the agreement or the resolution that we did when we hired these people, correct? That's why I'm a little confused here. Where is it coming from?
What was in the resolution was the total cost of employing those workers, which included the costs of transportation, the mileage reimbursement. So all of the funds are coming, none of the funds are coming out of the general funds. They're coming out of this Medicaid outreach money that is 90% federal money, 10% local match, which comes from income maintenance control funds. And the resolution includes the total cost. It just doesn't break out the reimbursement.
And it just puts these employees under the commissioner.
Yes, we have a contract with the commissioners for these employees.
Okay. Thanks, Dee.
Does the board have other questions for Ms. Acker? If not, I'll also move for approval on item 21.
Second.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
And advertise for bids for the following projects. The first one, to provide taxi transportation for Lorain County Job and Family Services clients to and from doctor's appointments, clinics, hospitals, laboratories, and other related medical appointments. I'd like to publish the notice in the Chronicle Telegram and Morning Journal. This will be on May 9th and the 16th, 2001. And the second item is a rebid seeking proposals from profit and not-for-profit agencies to provide adult daycare services for the Lorain County Job and Family Services. This is being rebid due to there was one bid received that was rejected because it did not arrive prior to the bid opening. And to publish also the notice on May 9th and 16th, 2001.
Madam Clerk, I have a technical question. Our board agenda is today 5:10, and this advertisement calls for 5:09.
Would be Yvonne can address.
Did the advertisement already take place?
Yes, it did.
Okay, that was just
Oh, yeah, I emailed Teresa the notice, and she didn't get them, but we had set the dates up, and I had already sent out the advertisement to the newspaper, so technically, yeah, they were advertised yesterday.
Okay. That being the case, I'll also move for approval.
No second.
Thanks.
Any more discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Okay, comments, Mr. Cortez?
I have actually it's one issue, but there's two parts to it this morning. I just received this by fax this morning. It has to do with the Amherst Township Sewer Project. We were looking to get the connection made. There's a couple connections have to be made with that sewer. We went out and we got quotes to do the job, and each one of the quotes that I need to have done here came in slightly above the $15,000 bid specification, where it would have to be sealed bid. I'm going to have Mr. Januzzi come up and speak in a moment on this, but I'm going to ask the board to waiver that, and for the sake of getting these connections done, and declare this an emergency resolution. We did tell the Turnpike Commission that we would be connected by the end of April. We're going into the middle of May here, and we haven't made the connection. I need to get that connection done. One of them is for $16,500, and the other is for $15,760. With that, I'll let Mr. Januzzi explain where we're at with this.
Good morning.
Excuse me a minute, are you asking us to waive the bid
I'm asking these to go under emergency resolution. Yes, I am, Commissioner.
You have 2 bids now? Is that what you're saying?
I have 2 quotes for the work right
So you're
now.
asking us to decide between these 2 quotes?
No, I'm asking you to approve
wait.
both of these.
to waive the bid, I believe is what it is.
That's correct. I'm
bidding
saying that this is, I want an emergency resolution to proceed.
Can I see who's
Yes.
people? Whatever you would like to look at.
Jack Januzzi.
Morning. Jack Januzzi, Sanitary Engineer's Office, JANNUZZI. We sent out 8 packages to 8 different contractors and asked them to give us quotes before April 23rd. Well, we didn't get anything back at all. So we called around, and it's just hard to get contractors to quote on this. We received 1 quote about 2 weeks ago. We separated the 2 connections and wanted prices for each connection separately so that we would be below the $15,000, and they still came in above that. So we just got a second quote Tuesday for the 2 connections, and it turns out that one contractor is lower on one and another contractor is lower on another one. It's just like pulling teeth trying to get these people to quote on this. So I don't know why they're busy this time of year or what, but I called everyone and asked them why they didn't respond, so got all their reasons. So.
Terry, can we do this on an emergency basis and waive the bidding process?
Do we have any, are we jeopardizing any other equipment, or it's just a time problem, right?
It's a time problem with the Turnpike Commission. I did send them a letter as authorized by the board some months ago indicating to them that we would be accepting flow on this sewer line by the end of April. If we have to bid this project, first off, I'm not completely sure that we're going to get anybody to bid on it. As Mr. Januzzi has indicated, he's been trying diligently to get quotes or proposals to do this work. That's number 1. Number 2, that process is going to take 4 to 6 weeks for us to get the bids, and that means we haven't dug a hole yet for 4 to 6 more weeks. And once again, we're back to jeopardizing the interchange with the Turnpike Commission. That is my justification for wanting to proceed with this. And we're not talking about a huge amount over the $15,000 for the bid mark. It's the pleasure of the board. I just need to make you aware of the situation.
I have to know from Jerry if we can legally do this.
In all frankness, Commissioner, based on what I've heard, I think it's really questionable. If the commissioners would like to go ahead and pass the resolution, and then I'll do a little bit more research. Generally, just getting yourself into a time jam is not does not qualify under the law as an emergency. It has to meet the other requisites. So rather than delay this and have to come back, if you want to go ahead and authorize the resolution, and then I'll before we proceed with it, I'll double check on that. But if I have to give you a legal answer right now, I do not believe this qualifies as an emergency. As much as that pains me, Commissioner,
But before we proceed...
we are not permitted to create our own emergency by getting ourselves in a time jam.
And before we proceed, you will have an answer, and then we can halt this if we have to.
So what are we off on? What are we talking about? $760 on one, and
that would, the alternative would be going back to them and asking them to make it $14,999.
I just don't want to see a multi-million-dollar project.
We have tried, and I do not want to supplant the law, so I'm not suggesting we do that. I think that Jerry has offered us a good compromise. If you could pass a resolution, I'll work with the prosecutor's office to ensure that we meet the essence and the intent of the bidding law. We have gone back. We have worked, as Mr. Januzzi has worked diligently on this for a few weeks. Right now, it's a busy season. We can't get nobody out there to dig this hole and put this pipe in. You're right, a multi-million-dollar project, and we're running into problems for $15,000 worth of work.
$2,200, it sounds like.
What does this actually do? Connect the Lorain and Amherst?
These are the final connections, right, Mr. Januzzi?
Yeah, there's one gravity connection, 75 feet of gravity sewer at Middle Ridge Road and Overland Road and a manhole. And the other one's 90 feet of force main at 113 and Overland Road.
Can we go back and ask the lowest bidder here to come down under 15,000? It's not that much different.
We can try again. I think
I've already covered some of that.
I think this has been pretty well beat. I talked to Mr. Carney yesterday. For this type of work, this is a small job for these companies. As much as it sounds like a lot of money to us, they have to bring the equipment out, and it's quite a bit of time-consuming work for them, although the job itself isn't very time-consuming. It's just getting out there on site. We can try again, but we've been working diligently on this. I don't, like I said, I don't want to supplant the law as far as it goes to emergency resolutions. I will certainly work with the prosecutor's office. If you could make the motion contingent upon approval by Mr. Ennis, at least if there's some statute that we could work under, we will be able to proceed without having to come back a week from now. If there's not, I won't allow this to go forward without his endorsement.
Commissioner, upon Mr. Ballard just handed me something, and looking at, since we're under $50,000, I think we'll be all right. I will double check that, but after, I knew the one section required a threat to structures, but I wasn't sure what the other limitation was, and it's $50,000, so I think we're going to be okay, but I will double check that.
Okay, so should we put that contingency in there just in case?
Yeah, that'd be great, and I'll get with Jerry this afternoon. We'll work through it, and if it meets the regulations, we'd like to get these contracts immediately, correct, Mr.
Yes,
Ducey?
absolutely.
So we can get this connection made. We'll safeguard the integrity of the process, Commissioner.
Okay, I would move that we give it to Mullins Construction contingent upon the prosecutor's review and validity of the moving it as an emergency measure.
And J.L. Reichert.
Oh, I thought we were picking between one or the other, and one was lowest bidder.
Well, there was two items.
Oh, one's going to do one section and one's going to do the other section? Okay, now also include J.L. Reichert.
Include his price, whatever it was.
His price is $16,500.
All right, I'll second.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mrs. Blair?
There further discussion?
I'm sorry.
Do you have a question?
No.
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Hopefully, we'll pass review, which I believe we will, and we're one step forward to flushing the toilet. With that, I'm finished. Thank you.
Is that all?
Thank you, sir.
Is that all? Okay. Okay, Assistant County Prosecutor, Mr. Ennis?
I don't have anything this morning.
Okay. Commissioners report?
Commissioner Vacy?
I have nothing.
Commissioner Moore?
I have nothing.
And I have nothing. Thank you.
Have an item under old business. To approve and enter into agreement between the Board of Commissioners and True Green Chemlawn of Elyria, Ohio, for Lorain County Job and Family Services for lawn care services and tree and shrub care services. 3 quotes were received, and True Green Chemlawn was the lowest and most responsive received. The agreement will be for a 1-year period for the 2001 season, with a 1-year renewal, locking in the current pricing. The total cost of the package would be $1,570.
Mr. Cordez, you were going to look into this?
As I was instructed, I did. I'm asking that we remove this item. I spoke with Ms. Goski, and I spoke with the maintenance department, and we have our own tank that we put in the back of the truck to do spraying for fertilizer and weeds, and that was acceptable to the parties that our maintenance department will accomplish this work. Therefore, we no longer need this resolution.
Thank you.
Any other old business?
I have none.
Not here. We have a temporary.
Yes, before we go into the Justice Center update, I think we should complete items G and I, if we can. Is there any new business from any of the commissioners?
No, I have none.
None?
None, okay. And then I would move the board correspondence reading be waived.
Second.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
And then I would like to move to Melanie, Long Ron Twining. Oh, you're going to be Melanie this morning, all right. Ron Twining.
Gotta be me.
Thank you, Commissioners. We have had an opportunity to work with the Village of Wellington in the person of Bob Doopy. They have a tax abatement issue and a project that I think you'll be very excited about with Whirl Away in their community. And actually, Lauren Falcone with Hogemeyer's is supposed to be here soon. I didn't see Lauren, but I would suggest that Mr. Doopy be given the opportunity to come up and present this to the Board of Commissioners so that you can take the appropriate action at the end of this hearing.
Thank you. There you, good morning, Bob Doopy. Good morning.
I have two issues. Issue number one is in 1996 we did an enterprise zone agreement with Sectional Die Company, and the company had erred in the amount of money it estimated for machinery and equipment and the facility itself, and so we need to amend the agreement to reflect that change. And the company had originally planned $4,338,000 for the building. Let me put it this way. The building cost $4,338,000. Originally it's supposed to cost $6 million, so it's down to $1,662,000. The personal property investment was $4,926,000, down to $1,985,000 from the $6,911,000 that it had in its original agreement. So we want to amend the agreement to reflect what was actually spent. I need your, and the Village of Wellington Council passed an ordinance agreeing to do that, agreeing to amend the enterprise zone agreement. I need the county commissioners to do the same.
Okay, and is it your recommendation, Mr. Twining, that we, in fact,
Yes, as you're aware, by the state law, every year we conduct a tax incentive review council meeting. Those meetings on each abatement last roughly 15 to 20 minutes, and for the last 2 years we've been aware of this, and it was the recommendation of the Turk this year to suggest to the village that they amend this. They have done that. Our recommendation to the Board of Commissioners from that committee is to accept this amendment as well.
thank you. Are there questions from the board?
No, I do have a question. Can you tell me, have they reached their employment goals?
They have not. They had originally set their employment goal at 50 and retaining 68. They have retained the 68, but only were able to employ 17. We opted not to amend that, but to just extend the time allotted for those jobs to be created. I have representatives from the company here if you'd like to talk to them about that.
We're not going to amend the employment goals, but
No, I want to maintain the employment goal of 50 as originally agreed upon.
when will that be reached? When will their quota be reached? Pardon me?
They're continuing to attempt to do that, but the market for dyes is softened somewhat currently, and so they're not able to offer those positions at this time.
Other questions? If not, I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Okay, and the next, Mr. Dupuy?
The next item, you want in here? Yeah. Thanks.
He does a nice job, doesn't he? Thank you, Bob.
Good morning. I'm Lorain Falcone with Poggemeyer Design Group. We work with the village and also with the county on tax abatement issues and other economic development issues. The village has received an application from Whirlaway Corporation, and we do have a representative here, their CFO, Howard Feldenkrais, here in the second row. They are going to be undertaking a massive expansion, 80,000 square feet for a new manufacturing facility to be located on Shiloh Avenue in Wellington. They'll keep their current facility at Bennett Street. This is a new project. They manufacture precision components, and Howard's here to answer any questions about the company or project. They actually have 2 new automotive industry contracts, and they're going to be spending $4 million on this new building and $9 million for machinery and equipment and $1 million in inventory related to this project. It'll be 125 new jobs for the county, $4 million in payroll over the next 3 years, and they are requesting 75% abatement for 10 years on both the real and personal property portion of this project. We had a negotiation team meeting on April 23rd. The county was involved, both school districts, Wellington schools, and their joint vocational school, and the village was also involved. And we sat around and determined that we'd like to recommend a 75% abatement for 10 years. The companies agreed to make a payment to both the Wellington schools and the joint vocational school in lieu of the taxes that they'll be losing for the abatement. I guess, do you have any questions on the project?
Do you have a letter from the schools agreeing to this?
We actually notified the schools. The schools right now are in the process of signing a school donation agreement. They were at the table and agreed to the project, but we don't have a formal letter.
I think we should have a formal letter for one thing. And secondly, is there any type of clause in there that if this company decides to leave, that they're going to pay this tax back to the
Definitely.
county?
It's called the clawback provision. I believe it's in section 11 or 12. But that actually says that the village and county will go after the company for back taxes if they would leave during that term of the abatement.
Can't they sign the agreement that said they'd be willing to pay back instead of us getting permission to go after them? Shouldn't the clause say that they should acknowledge that they'd have to refund that money?
It says we will go after them. We will go after. The village or county will require them to pay back the back taxes.
Well, is it saying that it's going to be required to pay it back, or does it say we're going to go after them?
It says we're going to go after them, right?
I would.
If you have, if the county has wording that they prefer we use, we can put that in there. If that's just the state-required language, says
Yeah, I think,
required payback.
Yeah,
let's put it in writing that we're going to chase somebody.
What I recommend, Commissioner, is that we ask Ms. Dennis to look at that language and come up with language that we find more suitable to the county's liking.
And unfortunately, it's nothing against you, it's just I think we're stinging still from York, so this is something.
I will say this, that we are a Wellington-based company, 100% owned by Tom Supan, who's building a new home in the Wellington area.
Okay.
Very highly unlikely that we would move.
Okay.
Although I do understand the necessity to have that.
All right. Okay. Well,
It's just, it's hard for these guys to chase you down, running around with you. So better that you agree to pay back.
I appreciate it.
If they get that to me, I'll get it over to Ms. Dennis.
And we do need a letter from the school.
Can I make one point too about the schools? The payment, we actually have a school donation agreement that we have in place, and the company's already signed off on that. And that actually says that they're going to get back all that they would have lost in the tax abatement. So the Wellington School District is being held harmless by the payment to the schools. So they're basically not losing any taxes, the Wellington School District, on this project, the way we've structured it. So I think it's like $68,000 over the 10 years is coming back to them in a payment from the company. I don't know if that's going to work. Once we have the actual school donation agreement signed, will that work as a letter, or you want a
Yes,
specific?
as long as it's signed
Okay,
by the
that's fine.
school.
Yeah, it'll be
So that-
signed at their next board meeting, which is the first week in June.
Ron, will you take care of getting that language up to me, that portion of the contract?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And Wellington Village Council approved this, Mr. Dupuy? Okay. All right.
On the 7th.
Any further comments from the Community Development Department, Ron?
You don't even say no.
We appreciate being invited to the table for that discussion by Wellington Village. Our two economic development planners were both there, both Melanie Long and Rebecca Jones. As you know, this is a local decision. It needs to be approved by the local village council and then submitted for the commissioner's approval. And Wellington did invite us to come and participate in that discussion, and we did do that. and our recommendation is clearly to support this. We think it's good for the Lorain County economy, and we look forward to that, and we're pleased that the school will be made whole in this abatement agreement.
Thank you, Ron. Having that been said, I will move that we approve the abatement agreement contingent upon receipt of the letter from the school district and with the wording that the commissioners have asked for to be included.
I will second that, and on behalf of the board, good luck in your businesses. And thank you for locating in Lorain County.
Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mrs. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye. Clawback quick session. That's a new word.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. Okay, that concludes our 10:30 appointment. Thank you. Now we will move on to the old business item of the Justice Center update. At last week's board meeting, we had extensive discussion about this project. Each commissioner was to be given an opportunity to meet with John Dragala from RP Carboni, who is the construction manager for the commissioners on this project. Mr. Cordes was asked to invite the architect to the meeting this morning. I see Randy Gordon is here. Good morning. And Bob Wygant. John Dragala is in the audience, together with Warren Finkel, who is the local architect, partnering with Collins, Gordon, and Bostwick. And we have had an opportunity to look at this project. We have had various discussions since the first of the year when Commissioner Moore came on board. And prior to that, the previous board has worked on this project for a number of years. So I think today we might want to conclude our discussion and determine a course of action so that we can proceed with building whatever it is we determine in the best interest of Lorain County.
Okay, it's my understanding that we're at the point with the Justice Center of reviewing what departments will go into the building and the review engineering and cost reductions. Am I correct?
Well, I think we all view this a little differently and what our approach should be. With respect to your first comment about who should go into the building, my idea, and this is just my idea, I think we need to decide how big the building is going to be. And that will depend on, the size of the building depends on the I can't even talk this morning. The cap for the cost, and I think that things will flow after that. But I think it's my opinion that we need to decide how much we're going to spend, and that will dictate who goes where as we work down the road.
But determining who goes in the building will determine the size.
Well, I guess the question is which came first, the chicken or the egg? So yes, one or the other.
Okay, so what are we doing?
Well, I think we're open for discussion. I think that's what we're doing.
I mean, what are we going to make our decision? What is the decision going to be today? On what issue? The size of the building, the amount?
What would be the best way to tackle this? Do you want me to just throw out my ideas and then we can go from there? Since I have a tendency to throw things out anyway.
You're not going to throw anything dangerous,
No, not dangerously.
Oh,
Nah, just political BS, you know. I appreciate John coming in yesterday to talk to me. I appreciate that. It was a 20-minute meeting that turned into, I think, an hour and 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And I apologize for your other appointment there, so I appreciate that. I have met with a couple of other architects to get outside opinions that weren't paid on a commission basis to get their input. I appreciate their help. I still don't have what I want from them, but I think I have sufficient information to change some of my stances on what I felt the size should be earlier. I appreciate what Mr. Rokasi has done. He has opened my eyes on what the budget process is about, and I'm thankful that we finally have a 3 to 5 year plan in place to take a look at to see where we're going to be down the road. Instead of other issues that pop up, I don't like reactionary style of management. I'd rather be proactive and see where the future is going to be and try to manage accordingly that way. So now, what I have done, if you guys want me to share this with you now, I can show you where I think the courthouse should be, because I think if I do this, I think that's where I'll answer Commissioner Vancey's question and maybe Commissioner Blair's, and the next line of questioning or answers. In March of 2000, we have a report here comparing the November approved program of, well, it says here $50.3 million Justice Center. They went back and did a value engineering reduction about, I think it was 2 weeks ago you did that for us, or last week I believe it was, and came back with $3.7 million off the 244,000 square foot Justice Center. So the information I have today that I can somehow at least let the two commissioners know where I'm thinking, or what I'm thinking, doesn't have the reduction on the value engineering. It doesn't have that. So what I'm going to do, because he can't give that, because if we keep going back and forth with three commissioners, he'll be working on 3 different projects. So I think would be good is hopefully today we can come up with a decision to proceed so they can get us the final information. I don't think we're going to get the final information today, but we're going to hopefully have a path that will be consistent. My thoughts are, we have an old courthouse, and I hope I'm not interrupting you, Jim. I mean, oh, okay. Well, Betty usually does this. I thought I'd step in this time.
Thank you.
I think Mary Jo will do it next, I'm sure.
She's just too far away.
I know. But taking a look at the old courthouse, I can tell you what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at the Court of Appeals, the visiting judge, and the prosecutor's office in the old courthouse. I'm also looking at, by doing this, we're down to 5 stories, and for the future courts, we will have 3 empty spaces for future development for future courts. We will have 2 on level 5 and 1 on level 6. The probate will be on level 4, and his clerk's office will be on level 1 in anticipation of the family court issue that may arise in the next couple of years. The numbers I came up with is by doing that, because these numbers have different, on the work that they did already, shows different numbers. So what I do is add some numbers back in, like probate, since that was off. So I put in a total of 186,500 in square foot for the justice, or for the courthouse. And then what I came up with talking with everyone, is using the number of 164, which is what the number is for the construction cost. We're at 39 and I'm going to say $40 million. Okay, that's without doing any value engineering reduction, which last time was done was $4 million. So I'm looking at the total project roughly at around $36 million, with $16 million borrowing. Although I said 10 to 12. By going up to 16 and going 20 million in cash versus 22, we'll have the budget, the general fund, be sound for the next, well, John, I think really it would just help the general fund out probably till at least for the next 6 to 7 years.
Correct.
That makes the general fund at least where we wouldn't have to cut any services, and this would not be something that takes all of our borrowing away. And so instead of borrowing $29 million, what I looked at was looking at borrowing maybe $16 million and using about $20 million of the cash, even though $22 million of cash has already been allocated. So taking that other $2 million will help save some of the shortfalls that are going to happen and keep the general fund solid so we wouldn't have to cut any services. So that's kind of the quick homework. And like I said, the problem I think we're having is it's the egg and the chicken routine. So it's almost the architects and the construction managers, they can't sit there and please 3 commissioners, because 3 commissioners, I think, have 3 different ideas. So I feel sorry for them right now. But maybe now it's time for me. I'm just letting you know what I've come up with. So those are the numbers that I've talking with everybody.